the taxi driver who became a famous author. On the bustling streets of a city that never seemed to sleep, a man named Kareem drove his old yellow taxi from dawn until midnight. His life was a blur of honking horns, exhaust fumes, and endless conversations with strangers who entered and exited his cab like passing clouds. Some days were good. Others left him counting coins just to buy bread. But no matter how long the road stretched or how heavy the traffic became, Kareem carried within him a secret world, a world of stories. Ever since he was young, Kareem loved words. While other children played soccer in the dusty alleys, he sat under a streetlight with a borrowed book in his lap. Stories transported him to places he could never reach. Castles, forests, oceans, galaxies. But life had demanded something different. His father fell ill when Kareem was only 17, and school was left behind for the steering wheel of a taxi. He told himself that someday maybe he would return to the pages he loved. Now, years later, that dream seemed buried under daily struggles. Yet, it never fully disappeared. In the back pocket of his seat, Kareem kept a small notebook. Between passengers at red lights, or while waiting outside crowded markets, he scribbled lines, snippets of dialogue, descriptions of faces, fragments of feelings. Every person who stepped into his cab became a character. The tired businessman, the crying mother, the couple in love, the drunk poet. They all lived again in his notebook. At night, when the city finally grew quiet, Kareem would sit by his kitchen table with tea and reread what he had written. The pages grew thicker, the ink messier, but the words became sharper. He did not know it yet, but he was writing the first draft of his life's greatest story. One rainy evening, Kareem picked up a passenger who would change his destiny. The man was an editor at a small publishing house, stuck in traffic and bored enough to chat. Kareem, never shy about conversation, shared pieces of his notebook. To his surprise, the editor leaned forward, listening carefully. "You know," the man said, "you have a gift. These are not just taxi stories. These are human stories." At first, Kareem laughed. Who would publish the words of a taxi driver? But the editor pressed a business card into his hand before stepping out, saying, "When you're ready, bring me a manuscript." That night, Kareem stared at the card as though it were a golden key. For months he worked tirelessly. By day he drove his taxi. By night, he poured his soul into writing. His tiny apartment filled with scraps of paper, stacks of notebooks, and the faint smell of ink. The city that once seemed noisy and cold now felt like an endless library of characters. Every fare became a chapter. Every face a new perspective. Finally, Kareem gathered the courage to send his work to the editor. He expected rejection, maybe even silence. But weeks later he received a call. The publisher wanted to meet him. His heart raced as he entered their office, wearing his only clean shirt and holding his handwritten manuscript. The editors listened, debated, and then smiled. "This is raw. This is real. We'll publish it." When the book was released, it didn't just sell, it resonated. Readers from across the city found themselves in his pages. The exhausted workers, the lonely dreamers, the hidden kindness of strangers. All captured through the eyes of a taxi driver who noticed everything. Newspapers began writing about the driver who became a writer. Television shows invited him for interviews. For the first time in his life, Kareem was not just behind the wheel. He was behind words that touched thousands. Success brought Kareem into a new world. Bookstores displayed his name. Young writers sought his advice. He traveled to festivals, standing on stages where once he could only afford a ticket to watch from the crowd. But Kareem never forgot where it began. He continued to drive his taxi from time to time, not for money but for inspiration. The cab remained his classroom, his window into humanity. Passengers often gasped when they realized they were riding with the now famous author. Some asked for autographs on receipts. Others begged to be included in his next book. Kareem would smile, jotting down another fragment for later. His second and third books followed, each richer, each deeper, yet always rooted in the streets that shaped him. What made him beloved was not glamour or fame, it was honesty. Readers knew his stories came from sweat, sleepless nights, and the ordinary struggles of life. He reminded them that greatness could grow from unlikely places, that even a driver stuck in traffic carried inside him the power to create worlds. Years later, when Kareem walked into a university hall to give a lecture, He paused at the sight of young faces looking up at him with hope. He told them, "I am proof that dreams don't expire. No matter how many years you drive, work, or struggle, your stories matter. If you carry words in your heart, they will find their way into the world." The hall erupted in applause, but Kareem's thoughts drifted to his old yellow taxi, waiting for him at the curb. He smiled, knowing that the road never truly ended. It simply became another story to tell.